Hi everybody, welcome to my talk on data protection for higher education. Just going to take myself off view. Today I'm going to cover three main areas: data protection issues, giving you an oversight of them, some tips on where to start, and I'll talk about the need for teamwork. But first I want to give some context for the higher education sector. So I always conceive of the higher ed sector, every institution, in three realms. There's administration, research, and teaching. In administration, that's all the enterprise systems. We manage a large amount of data for both staff and students. We've got tax file numbers, we've got bank accounts, and all sorts of personal stuff that we don't want to get out. In the research realm, we've got huge amounts of research data, anything from clinical data from patient trials to climate data and anything in between. And then increasingly now, especially this has been driven exponentially by COVID, we've got lots and lots of staff interaction data. And these three realms make us different to your average bank or insurance company. And realistically, all of these things are of key focus for higher education institutions now. And data governance is a key foundation for this. And this is not just being driven by the organisations themselves. Increasingly, it's being driven by the Commonwealth Government and their cybersecurity agencies. Now, we know this intimately because UNSW got hacked back in 2012, Christmas 2012. It was a lovely Christmas present. And we had no idea how they got in, and we really started to take cybersecurity very seriously after that. Before that, we were a very open organisation, and we've just gradually been reducing our attack surface. And then in 2015, our Facebook got hacked, which was also a fun moment for us. I want to just start off with some definitions though, because I think it's good to be clear about things. This definition of data governance is the one that I selected for UNSW back in 2014 when we started our program. And I really like this one. There are many others. It's not the best one in the world, but it's the one I chose because it's really clear about the essentials for data governance. So it's about policies, procedures, structure, roles, and responsibilities. And then it talks about rules of engagement, decision rights, and accountabilities for effective management of your information assets. And this to me sums up data governance. And this is why I say that data governance is the foundation for good cybersecurity and information security. And the next thing I really want to point out to folks is that cybersecurity and information security are not the same thing. They're two sides of a coin almost. So the first thing is cybersecurity, which is actually about protecting yourself from external threats. So people out there trying to get you in here. And then information security is actually maintaining the CIA triad, the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of your systems, making sure that no one can get in unapproved, making sure they can't destroy or modify data. Really an important thing, but it goes hand in hand with cybersecurity. The other thing I want to talk about is your attack surface. And in higher education, we are different to other organisations in that we have a very big attack surface. So you've got, in terms of your digital attack surface, you've got your known assets. They're all the things that you know about. Increasingly in universities, and it's never going to go away, you've got your unknown assets. So someone runs up a server to do some research or something, and you've got a potential vector for an attack. And then there's rogue assets, which are bad actors creating servers and other assets on your network that you might not know about. Then there's the physical attack surface, which is your network. And I'm going to talk about some things you can do to protect against attacks there. And your social engineering attack surface, which is really about people, because people, I'm sad to say, are the weakest link. Now I want to just run through the threat landscape. This is from 2020, and I don't think anything's changed here except everything's gotten slightly worse. And the impact of cybercrime in Australia is one report every 10 minutes. so that was from a survey that the ACSC did late last year, and $300 million per year of annual losses due to cybercrime. So it's not an insignificant amount. So the top 15 threats. Of all of these, the ones that keep me up at night are malware, phishing, data breach, insider threat, ransomware, and cyber espionage. I see malware, phishing, and ransomware as all being tied together, phishing being the attack vector, malware being what is deployed, and ransomware being the whole attack thing that they're doing. And this is because bank robbing is not fashionable anymore. Why would you put on a mask, go grab a gun and go and rob a bank when you can sit at home in your jammies and launch phishing attack, get into someone's system, install some malware and launch a ransomware attack? And increasingly now, they are not just crypto locking your data, they exfiltrate it first, then they lock it, then they ransom it, then they sell it on the dark web. So it's a big bang for an attack group. Of course, this all leads to the threat of data breaches, which is always problematic for organizations such as ours. And the other thing that we need to consider is insider threat. And I think at universities, we're often quite naive and we don't always consider the insider threat. And the last one for us as higher education institutions is cyber espionage. And it's increasingly state actors trying to get into our research data and use it for their own national advantage. So that's kind of the threat landscape that we're facing now. And as I said, this was last year. I don't think it's changed much, but I think it's getting worse. And part of the challenge is that the perimeter has shifted. In the olden days, we used to just be able to hide behind our firewalls, and everything that happened behind our firewalls was safe, relatively speaking. Now, increasingly, the perimeter is everywhere. And this has increased exponentially, and you're going to hear me say exponentially a lot this year in this talk, because COVID has driven everything exponentially. So now the perimeter is wherever anyone or any device logs into your networks. And your networks may not just be on premise, they may be in the cloud. So increasingly, we've got workers out there in random places. I mean, I've got a couple of people who are stuck in India logging into work. And then increasingly, there's sensors and appliances. So your devices are phoning home as well as tablets and stuff. So the perimeter is no longer one place, it's many places. And that's the issue that we're all trying to grapple with. And it means that we can't hide behind our firewalls anymore. So we do have to evolve our practices. And one thing I really do want to point out is that data security is not just one thing. To protect the data, we need to have sensible user management. We need to have application security. We need to have endpoint security. We need network security and perimeter security. And all of that working together with sound data and information governance, with a sensible cyber and information security program, supported by policies and procedures and data management practices. And also we need to bring in privacy and risk management. And this all needs to be supported by developing people and developing a culture of data security mindset. Now I just want to go into practices. So we've all got a diagram that looks like this. It is the landscape that is our reality. But increasingly, we need to get clarity as to what's in that landscape. And this diagram is how I framed our data governance program. Because a lot of times when you want to start that conversation, people go, I don't have a problem. And if you ask them these 5 questions, they will very often go, oh my God, I do have a problem, can you help me? And that is what I did. I used to have a laminated sheet of this that I used to take around with me when I was starting our data governance program. And it would very often start with them going, I don't have a problem, I don't need data governance, and have them sobbing on my shoulder saying, please help me. So think about framing stuff up in meaningful ways for people. This is a really important diagram, and it's because we need to have all of these pieces in place now. So you need to have your data and information governance in place. You need your information lifecycle management, and that includes your record keeping and records management. And it needs to be supported by policies and procedures so that people understand what their obligations are and what they need to do. And that needs to be supported by training and awareness. And all of this needs to be underpinned by security controls. And it also needs to be supported by your contracts. So your contracts need to have sensible clauses in them to protect you when you're using third parties, because third party risk is really increasing now that we are using more software as a service and hosted applications. You need to make sure that your third parties are not your vulnerable point, and that their data and information governance and their cybersecurity and their information security is up to scratch. Otherwise, you're just as weak as your weakest link. And now increasingly, we all have data breach management, data breach reporting obligations. So that's really important. And there is also a necessity to have really clear data handling procedures so that people know what's expected of them. Data governance, and I do rabbit on about data governance, but it is so fundamental because it really helps you work out where is your data at risk, helps you identify your sensitive data, it helps you decide where to spend your scarce cyber and information security dollars so that you don't try to maintain the same level of service for all the data, that you only do it for that data which matters. And it also helps you work out where is the sensitive data, who's using it, how it's flowing through the organization, implement data stewardship so that the business is in control of it. And it starts to help you to mitigate the people risks to data, because as I have mentioned before, people are the weakest link. And I do recommend that you have an incident response framework. If you don't have one, NIST has a good one. There are many out there. You need one, pick one. I'm a big fan of NIST, so shout out to NIST. So the fundamentals for protecting your data are start with the Essential 8. That's the Australian Cybersecurity Centre's Essential 8. It's all of the important things. And in particular, if you can only do 3 of these, patch your applications, patch your operating systems, and make sure your daily backups are rock solid for when you get hit by ransomware. And it's not if, it's when. I want to also now run through some 10 practices to secure your data better. First of all, know which data assets you need to protect. Not all data is equal. This is where data governance comes into play. Once you've ascertained which data assets you need to protect, encrypt the really important ones. That way, if somebody does get in and seek to exfiltrate your data, they will not be able to use it. And even if they ransomware it, it still won't be of any use to them. User awareness training. It's essential because, as I've mentioned before, people are the weakest link. The other thing is to only store necessary data. Don't be storing data unnecessarily. We are all terrible data hoarders, but I do encourage you to really think seriously about, do you need to store that data? The other thing is get in there and close out any unnecessary open ports on your networks. That is a really easy thing to do, and it will give you so much more security. Implement multi-factor authentication. It is the single biggest thing you can do to reduce your attack surface. Look at your network segmentation. If you've got your network effectively segmented, they can't navigate across. Improve your email security. So look at SPF, DKIM, and DMARC. They are 3 ways that you can improve your email security. Establish regular user access reviews. This is something completely manual. It doesn't need any fancy tools. Just make sure that you're cleaning old users out and making sure that people can't aggregate access as they move across your organization. And number 10, establish a patching schedule. I know it is hard, but just do it. And now I want to talk briefly about teamwork. So I genuinely see cyber and information security as a risk discipline, as do I see data governance. And we typically, in organisations like higher education institutions, we typically use the 3 lines of defence model. And for those of you who are not familiar with it, the first line of defence is the frontline people, the business units that own and manage the risk. And the second line of defence are the risk and compliance support people, so the risk professionals. And then the third line of defence is the independent assurance and independent or internal audit. And I genuinely think that data governance, information and cybersecurity play an important role across these. So this is a pretty standard way of conceptualizing the 3 lines of defence model, but I believe that you need to put these things across the bottom. So cybersecurity, information security, privacy, and data and information governance. And if you do that, then the entire practice around your 3 lines will be much stronger. And this is important because now we have a much more complex landscape in which we manage data. In the olden days, we used to just acquire and store data. Now we still do that, but then we aggregate it and analyze it. We create new data products. We use that data to gain insights. We often share data in higher education. We don't often sell it, but we do often share our data. We get data from other people and we share our data with other parties too. And then obviously we dispose of it. So this is a much more complex landscape than just the grab it and stick it in a database model we used to follow. So I see the essential team for managing data security as being these ones. So privacy, cyber and information security, risk management, ethics, and data and information governance. And you'll see ethics has suddenly popped up here. And that's because as higher education institutions, we are really good at asking our researchers to do ethics approval for anything they want to do. We do not force the same discipline on ourselves when we're doing things in the administration or learning and teaching. So I do really think that people should start to consider how they can put an ethical lens across all of this. We've been on this journey for a number of years now, and some of the stuff that we've learned is build up defensive layers methodically. Every day do one thing better, and you underestimate the power of incremental change. But if you've got one person doing one thing better every day for a year, that's about 220 days of improvements. And if you times that by everybody in your team, then you've got a whole lot of incremental improvement happening. The other is get it into your heads that data is an asset and should be managed. Everybody now agrees that at our place. And it is a team effort. And the other thing that I always say is it is a journey, not a destination. So this is not a one-off capital investment. This is an ongoing operational investment, and it is a necessary one. And it's not going away. So it is a team effort, and it is dangerous to go alone. So you should go together. Thank you.